Hey everyone, welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report, chatting with Erik Wetterling, talking about three different stocks, all with some fairly recent news that Erik has brought to our attention. We're going to talk about first Nordic Metals, we're going to talk about Prismo Metals, and Inflection Resources. First, starting with first Nordic and recent news of a new target at the Storjuktan Project. Now, this company, as we've talked about with Erik numerous times, holds a number of projects in Sweden. So, hey, Erik, let's talk about this new target, this Storjuktan Project. I don't think that the Storjuktan Project is necessarily the company's flagship project, but it's a whole other exploration avenue for them. So, what caught your eye about that recent news?
I'm just going to say that what stands out is the sheer scale of it. And it says in the news release, I mean, this is a 5 by 1 kilometer anomaly. And as it also says here in the news release, by comparison, the Barsele project's arsenic and zinc glacial till pathfinder anomaly measures approximately 3.5 by 0.8 kilometers. So it's, okay, to be a bit conservative, it's at least as large as the Barsele polymetallic till anomaly. So this is obviously, I mean, 5 kilometers, if you find any kind of anomaly of 5 kilometer length, that's huge. So this is why I think, as Tosh has basically alluded to in presentations and interviews, like, I mean, they think there could be 2 to 3 additional Barsele in the gold line belt because it's so underexplored. And again, it's like, I don't know what created an anomaly this size, and I don't think this is going to be the only anomaly, and this is on the 100% ground as well, which makes it even more interesting. So I mean, Porphyry, I would say, is the flagship pure exploration project still, because there they actually had the discovery hole, so they've already located a gold zone with the drill bit. Storjuktan is still, I mean, grassroots, but to have 2 multi-kilometer anomalies to be drilling on top of what they already have at Barsele. And that's, of course, with Agnico, who are doing wildcat drilling there right now. But that's what I kind of love about this story, actually. It's like the margin of safety comes in the fact that they have what appears to be already a deposit big enough to be mined. That's in the Barsele. And they don't own 100% of it, but still, that's an Agnico drilled resource. There's a bunch of other targets within the Barsele project as well, and that's kind of what Agnico Eagle are drilling right now, including the Risberget target, and they have the Bastuträsk target, and they of course have the VMS potential. But then you have the blue sky potential on top of that, and that's the almost 100 kilometer long strike of the gold line belt, where apparently it can have multi-kilometer gold in or pathfinder anomaly. So I'm very excited. I mean, the way I see it is like, hey, I'm buying Barsele on the cheap, and I'm getting a free optionality on 100,000 hectares with a lot of it 100% owned, and they're finding, I mean, footprints, anomalies with footprints that rivals Barsele. And we know Barsele is at least 2.5 million ounces, probably up to 5 million ounces if I had to guess, given that there's no rock change according to Agnico going down to 2 kilometers, and they've hit it down to 950 meters already.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to keep following along with First Nordic, because I saw that the drilling was announced last month at the Barsele with Agnico, and that they're drilling there. Now that they've got these other discoveries going on along the belt, definitely a story with a lot of exploration potential, and that's a huge area to cover. So it'll be interesting to keep following along with First Nordic. Another company you did mention, though, that you wanted to talk about today, and I don't think we've discussed this one with you before, Erik, is Prismo Metals. It's traded on the ticker PRIZ, and it's got kind of a combo of 2 different projects. One is copper in Arizona, and the other is silver and gold in Mexico. You're more animated by the copper in Arizona. I guess let's just take it up there. What has you looking at Prismo Metals?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the poster childs for high or very high risk, very high reward exploration plays. I mean, in its simple form, what attracts me to it is their copper target in Arizona. I mean, it's surrounded by big copper deposits. I mean, there's the resolution to the north, and there's a bunch of other copper deposits like the Christmas mine. But this is going to be deep drilling. The Phelps Dodge in Kennecott drilled 7 holes back between 1972 to 1981. I actually don't know what was their threshold for success back then. It's like, did they do block caving back then? I don't know. But still, they drilled 7 deep holes. So obviously they thought there was something there. They hit some smoke. They hit like 0.5, 54% copper over 77 feet, 60 feet of 1.4% copper. So it's like, there's something is there. I mean, there's copper there. That's for sure. And it appears that most of the copper hits were very deep. And so there's been geophysics done. So now I guess the no-brainer target is that there's a conductive body from a CTEM survey, which is below or to the side of the deep drilling that has been done and where they got the higher grade copper hit. So it's like, this is expensive drilling. It's going to be deep, but at least you kind of have an obvious target, let's say, because let's face it, if you do orogenic gold exploration, whatever, it's like, yeah, you drill and you hit something. You don't exactly know what you have, but if that's the beauty of porphyries, they're expensive to especially develop, but also drill for. But if you have like a clear-cut target like this, you know what you're signing up for. We know the market cap is sub 10 million. They're going to be raising money. Also, they need to get the permits first. But in my opinion, it comes down to, okay, let's say a 10 million market bet, a 10 million market cap bet, or 12, depending on what the dilution is going to be. Odds are they're not going to discover anything of significance, or not something that's going to be a minor dose depth, let's say. But what happens if they do? I mean, I don't need to see a high chance of success to kind of see that, well, from 12 million market cap, that's a 10 bagger to get to 120 million. So is there a chance that they might actually pierce something there that Kennecott and Phelps Dodge just, let's say, brushed at that? Yeah, I think there's a chance. Otherwise, I don't think this project would be of interest. So it's just one of those, clear-cut, very high risk, very high reward stories. It's not one where you bet the farm on it, hoping to get rich tomorrow. But I kind of like these stories. I mean, again, it's like you can't miss a lot of things. It's not like a junior going into production where there's a million things to consider. This is like basically pure exploration drillers. And yes, they have more projects as well. But to me, the main attraction is actually that this is a kind of a quite exciting lottery ticket, I would say.
Yeah, well, a couple of things about the company. Still a fairly tight share structure of just around 55 million shares fully diluted outstanding. And slide 11 shows the exploration plan here. They are still waiting for that permit. It looks like they plan to drill 5,000 meters in Q2 or Q3 of this year. So we're getting up to Q3 pretty quick here. And they're planning on twinning or deepening one or more of these historical core holes. So overall, like you said, Erik, this is kind of early stage exploration. If they hit something, well, they're going to undoubtedly need to raise money and keep on drilling. But you don't care about that silver project in Mexico that is right around Vizsla Silver's ground. And Vizsla Silver is also a shareholder in this company, about a 9% shareholder. That silver in Mexico aspect doesn't really have your attention here?
I guess it comes down to, like, I haven't dug into that project that much, but there's obviously potential there because Vizsla Silver appears to be the hottest silver junior in the sector, and they've already had bonanza gold and silver hits down there on their patch of land. So it's like, does that have value? I think absolutely. But is that enough to, like, or would I buy it only on that? No, I don't think I would, even though it for sure has value. But it's like, there's a lot of stuff that's cheap out there. My problem is not finding something that I think is cheap or undervalued. My problem is, the challenge is to find what do you think are the cheapest, for example. So I like the idea that, hey, even if they miss this, maybe that project down near or in the midst of the Vizsla ground, maybe that's worth quite a bit. I mean, let's say the market cap gets cut in half down to, let's say it goes from 12 million to 6 million. Is that expensive based on that ground and their other projects? No, I think that would be cheap. So there is obviously a plan B and C, but that's not what really attracts me to it. I mean, I think I would see it somewhat similar, even if it was that they only had the copper project. So for me personally, it's the copper play that gets me most exciting. But that doesn't mean that, hey, maybe let's say they miss, crashes down 50-60%. They go work in Mexico already. Vizsla gets their mine up and running, and they some years later sell their project to Vizsla for at least tens of millions of dollars, and everybody made out like a bandit anyway. That's not out of the realm of possibilities. But to me, what entices me the most is simply that, because obviously you can't drill a silver project like that with, let's say, 5 holes, and it's like, oh, hot damn, we found a major discovery. That's not how those systems typically work. But in the case of porphyries, if they're, let's say, quite compact or whatever, if they would get 3 good hits, really good hits, let's say, then you kind of know. I mean, it would have a quantum leap potential, which you don't really have if you're drilling for vein-hosted deposits.
That's a good point, Erik. If you make a interesting copper porphyry discovery at depth on a long hole, and you kind of know, or 2 or 3 holes, and you kind of know, hey, something going on here, it's a little different than drilling out a silver deposit, where it usually takes dozens of holes or hundreds of holes to really know what you have going on. So we'll keep tabs on Prismo Metals. Appreciate you bringing it up. One other company that we did want to get to, though, is Inflection Resources. It's traded under the ticker AUCU. And they had some information out that they were doing some different geological surveys at their Northern Duck Creek exploration license. They've been using the ANT survey, which is ambient noise tomography. This is where they're partnered with AngloGold Ashanti. You were pretty excited about this and what's going on here. So maybe just speak to how this could be a proof of concept for, a systematic approach they could then apply to other targets.
So, I mean, I've been reading up a bit on Macquarie Orc. I've been a shareholder of Inflection for a long time. They're with the New Quest group, and I respect Alistair a lot. And again, look at the technical team. It's probably the most impressive exploration technical team I've seen in the junior space. Insiders own a bunch of money. They're partnered with AngloGold, who's funding the drilling for the copper porphyries down in New South Wales, Australia. So what recently happened, I mean, there's a few things going on. Okay, so they pretty recently announced the results of an ANT survey, which you just described. And that showed, I think it delineated 6 targets. Okay. And what happened shortly after that? Well, or in the same news release, basically, that they said, okay, we're gonna be drilling deep holes here. We're gonna go after these targets, which showed up with ANT, because not all geophysics work here, because the cover sequence is like 400 meters in some places. So it's tricky. And that's obviously why they were able to stake 200 kilometers of this belt. And also, I watched a presentation by Quinton when he went through the ANT, and he showed a nice slide where you can see the kind of a vertical profile of one of the targets that the company behind the technology used in one of their case studies. So you see this needle-type geophysical anomaly show up. And what is this? Let's say the Macquarie Orc known for pencil porphyries. Basically vertical, slim features, that go straight up. You look at North Parks. They have a bunch of these pencil porphyries, and they have, an implied mine life of like 90 years or something. Because as I also found out, and as North Parks show, and I guess Katie as well, that Macquarie Orc has extreme clustering of porphyries, both on the micro and the macro scale. So where you find one, odds are there's going to be more nearby. And I think they found up to 22 different porphyries or porphyry targets around North Parks, as an example. So why I think this deep drilling here, guided by the ANT, is going to be the outcome leverage is going to be absolutely extreme, simply because, okay, let's say they do hit a porphyry, they get an economic intersection. That means, given what we know about the Macquarie Arc, should mean that there's going to be a bunch of other porphyries in the area, which makes it de-risks the other 5 targets around it. Because if you hit one, there's probably going to be more around. So it's not, maybe some districts have the situation where, yes, we can see porphyries show up alone. So it doesn't say much. You find one, maybe that is a 50-50 chance there's even more around. But in this case, Macquarie Arc is famous for extreme clustering. So that's going to de-risk all the other targets nearby, or you could kind of count on there being more porphyries, which would be great. Then you have a porphyry camp already. Also, the ANT survey itself, if this works, it's proof of concept that ANT surveys works at the ground that Inflection has. It doesn't mean that it's going to work on every target or whatever, But at least you have proof of concept. It's like, hey, we were able to pinpoint a porphyry based on the A&T. Okay, how useful is that? Well, we got 200 kilometers, 29 target areas. So if it works there, maybe it works on the 29 other targets. So that could, have huge back-end impact on the, let's say, overall accuracy of exploration and the pace of exploration. Because I assume that if this works, they're going to be doing a lot more A&T service on the other area. So I'm not saying this is going to be a silver bullet, but I think it has potential to be somewhat of a silver bullet, at least for parts of the portfolio. And it's like, if you find a new exploration tool, or let's say when they discovered how to extract shale oil, then you would want to own as much shale basin as you could, basically, because it unlocked it went from worthless to becoming worth something. So, you would want to have a lot of targets to use A&T on if it does end up looking like somewhat of a silver bullet. So I think, again, it's like at face value, if they get an economic intersection one of these days at Duck Creek, people might say, oh, nice, they might have hit a porphyry. But again, thanks to the clustering, it should mean that there's the other ones might be porphyry clusters as well. And it's going to hike up the implied value of every other target area they have, because if the A&T works, it's going to speed up the process of finding it, requires less money, and it's going to go quicker, obviously. And on top of that, what happened shortly after they announced this? Well, AngloGold made a deal with the neighbor of Inflection, their neighbor to the west of the Duck Creek target area, which is Kinkora Copper. So it's like, that kind of rhymes, that they have pretty high hopes here. And again, maybe that comes back to the clustering. If, they think they have porphyry cluster here, that means that to the west, the porphyry cluster might extend, and or that they think this A&T thing works, so they're staking even more buried ground. So to me, this has huge signal value, and I think the market is very much underestimating this.
So Erik, to the point about the investment angle here, one of the major draws towards Inflection is the fact that AngloGold has this option to move forward 5 different projects. Duck Creek is getting fast-tracked when you look at it from the investment standpoint. Outside of just these drill results, you obviously want to see AngloGold move forward with multiple other projects outside of Duck Creek. Do you think it all hinges on this drilling then?
No, I don't. Because as far as I know, I don't think anybody counted on the A&T survey. I think this is new technology. That's why I have Inflection as a case study. So the way I see it is like, if A&T does not work, well, then you're back to square one. You're going to do it the old-fashioned way. They're going to do their green rock geochemistry. They're going to do short scout holes, and then try to use other geophysical tools and, again, the green rock geochemistry triangulation to find where the porphyries might be. I think this simply has the chance of, let's say, revolutionizing how they look for porphyries undercover within their huge project portfolio. So I think it has super asymmetrical payoff. Because if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that there's no porphyries there. It means that it's going to take longer to find them, let's say. If they do hit, it should mean, again, based on the clustering, that they have a cluster of porphyries there. It's not just going to be one. And for the entire portfolio, it means that, hey, okay, A&T actually works in this part of the world, and we were able to delineate clear porphyry targets. So again, I think it's insanely asymmetrical based on the results, let's say, because it can't kill the story. There's no way it can kill the story, but it can superuse it on multiple fronts, both in the micro Duck Creek scale and macro portfolio scale.
All right, Erik, thanks for the insights on these 3 companies. We've talked a lot about first Nordic Metals. Prismo Metals is one that has been brought up before, but we've never really done a deep dive. Maybe we will get a little bit more information on Prismo as they move it forward. And Inflection Resources, let's see what happens with this exploration at Duck Creek, and let's see what other projects Anglo moves forward with in that earn-in agreement. Erik, thank you as always for your time. We'll post a link to the Hedgeless Horseman website. Chat with you next week. Have a great rest of your week there, Erik.
Thanks, guys. The same. And consider me biased. I own shares of all 3 companies, and Prismo and Inflection are banner sponsors.